Hello there. So this time around, I remembered the mic, right? I think we had a few videos in which I had that unfortunateness, right? I forgot it somewhere a little bit far and my voice would be too low. Anyway, again, like you guys wanted, I'm gonna give you the dough. What am I gonna talk about this time around? I am going to talk about infusions, right? So, so for those of you that like to, mess around and fidget with things, right? Take a look at stuff. I'm sure that you have noticed that we have this Cold-Infused for Spark, we have this Fire-Infused for Comet. So what do these do, right? So what do these do is the most obvious and easy question. They empower the skill because you can just read it right away, right? So a few words there still. As you can see, my Spark is 332k and my Cold-Infused Spark is almost 800k, which is increasing its damage by almost 150%, which is insane, right? On top of that, it also has a higher crit rate modifier, which means your crit rate will increase provided you are not a blood mage, right? I am a blood mage, so it doesn't really matter for me. Why? Because I have a 15% base crit chance, and because that's higher, the game just uses that. So even if I do the cold infuse, my spark, the crit rate is not going to change, but obviously because I'm a blood mage, it is already at 100%. So but there's that, right? If you are playing an oracle or a shaman, it's going to make a difference, right? It's going to go up. So for example, guys, let's say you have a 72% crit chance on your spark, it's going to become 88% with your cold infused spark, right? Huge difference. And if you have, I don't know, rite of passage cat, that's gonna go all the way up to 100% when it's cold infused. So that's that. The damage gets improved by a lot. The number of projectiles fired also increases. So the damage actually is quite much more, right? Projectiles fired per use is 20 here, and in here it's 20, right? Huge difference, right? It's so this is something you should definitely tap into, right? Uh, and for Comet, we will have the Fire-Infused thingy, 1.7 million for my Comet, and 4.25 million insane for the Fire-Infused Comet, right? Also applies a lot of course, Ignite 2, dealing that heavy fire damage. Yeah, it's beautiful. So the problem with this is, guys, how do I get my hands on these infusions, right? Would say the second question that we should take a look at would be, what do those infusions do on their own, right? Maybe that would be the third question, but let's get into it. It's very simple. They don't do anything at all, right? They do little nothing, right? Much like the power charges, much like the charges, right? Power charges, endurance charges, frenzy charges, they don't do anything at all. So the infusions are also there. I mean, that's what they do, or that's what they don't do, right? They are there to be consumed and nothing else. They do not provide any sort of passive benefit, just like in Path of Exile 1, which I liked more, right? I haven't played in Path of Exile 1 in years and years, but if I recall correctly, endurance charges were giving you damage reduction per charge, increase attack or cast speed with frenzy, and maybe increase damage with power. Anyway, that's not very important, but this is stuff that you work hard to get your hands on, right? These are not easily obtained. Infusions are similar as well. I mean, I would say they should have done something passive, but they don't. So how do we earn these? That's the third and most important question, because those of you that are curious and have taken a look at these, right? You know what they do, right? They are great. They do insane amounts of damage. They have some additional benefits as well. And we have looked into what they do on their own. They don't do anything. But now the final question: how do you obtain them? Well, there are different methods for different infusions. So, for example, guys, let's just take a look at the Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms just leaves behind the Lightning Infusion on its own, right? I do the Orb of Storms. Let's wait for it to expire. And there it is, leaves behind the remnants. And as you can see, I do have two lightning infusions on me, which don't do anything. I mean, which don't do anything on their own, but also they don't do anything for my build, right? I do not have anything that becomes lightning infused. I have the spark that becomes cold infused, and I have the comet that becomes fire infused, and that's about it, right? There is nothing else. So, how do we get the others? So, guys, I have been, thinking about that, right? Because, as you can see, they are mighty, mighty, mighty powerful, right? Yeah, I mean, if it was like a 20-30% damage up, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have bothered. But, this is very, very nice, right? 150% damage up. Can't do it all the time, but we can do it sometimes. So one method is that's popularly used is using living bomb, right? It's a skill. Let me just show you. Let me grab a skill gem here. Doesn't really matter what it is. I just want to show you living bomb. So let's take a look here. Plant a seed of fire inside the enemy. If you deal enough damage or kill it, the seed will explode and it will leave a fire infusion remnant behind. The remnant thingy, that's the concept of stuff that appears on the ground that you pick up, right? I mean, if you have played a blood mage, or if you are playing some character with a covenant, you would know this because life remnant is being granted to you, and the little red orbs on the ground that heal you. But there are different versions, right? So remnants are stuff that linger on the ground, and you pick them up for some sort of bonus, right? So with the life remnant, that's easy, right? It heals you immediately, right? It does something. But these infusion remnants don't do anything, right? They are just there, and they stay for 20 seconds. And if during those 20 seconds you use a skill that gets empowered by said remnant, then it does get empowered. So this is one of the popular methods. But of course, constantly casting living bomb would be a little bit annoying. Some people get a lot of spirit and use cast on elemental ailment and put the living bomb in, right? Because we are casting spark that applies shock, right? Also, we rain down comets which apply chill and freeze that would accumulate energy for cast on elemental ailment, which will bring down the living bomb, which will give us fire infusions. But the problem with that is cast on elemental ailment requires a whopping 100 spirit, right? That is a bit of a problem because cast on critical requires 100. You can quality it to require like 90 or something, but still there is the huge gap, right? I mean, you would have to get an amulet with near perfect spirit, and probably you would also have to get one with the spirit implicit, a solar amulet that goes up to 15 as well. And then you also want spirit corruption on your helmet, then you would be able to get there. Or the other alternative would be get yourself an Against the Darkness with spirit on it. That is very expensive too, right? Above 1,000 divine these days. And also you would have to mess your skill tree up a little bit. Yeah, none of the alternatives are pleasant. So what I arrived at was, guys, I'm just using an amulet with spirit. That's it, right? Because, this one, yeah, you can't do it, right? That's multiple mirrors. I mean, if I want to keep everything intact here and I want to get a spirit corruption there, which is possible because we have double corruption, but that is at minimum 2 mirrors. Yeah. And the stats, the crit chance and the chaos resistance will go lower, if not go away altogether. So yeah, that's not going to happen. So it is achievable, right? If I would get 50 from here and I would get 20 something from here, that's going to be 50. I have 20 more. 60, 82. No. I would have to also change my amulet into a solar one, which gives spirit as an implicit. 50 plus 15 is 65. I would have to maybe downgrade my helmet, right, into a one socket or something to get us. Then I could, right? But obviously not everyone is going to play my build. I'm just theory crafting here. I don't think it would be very feasible. So I have a method that is a little bit less reliable, but still works, right? I mean, I'm just gonna showcase it to you in a few minutes after I do some explaining. So what I did was, guys, as you can obviously see, I did get myself an amulet with spirit, and I went for Arctic armor. That's a defensive tool, doesn't really matter, but there is this one, right? Siphon elements. That's what I'm using. I didn't go for a level 20 because those are, extremely expensive and you don't really get too much out of it. I was okay with the 20. So what does this do? So when you freeze someone, you have a 7% chance to spawn a cold remnant per their power. And power, I have a video for this. I don't want to, get there too much, but, uniques have a power of 20. Rares have a power of 5 times the monster's own base multiplier. So, for example, guys, those huge, building size cleansed monsters have a higher multiplier. The tiny bugs sort of thing have a smaller multiplier. We don't have the whole list, but, each monster has a multiplier. Yep. Uniques have 20, rares have 5, magics have 2, normals have 1, and then that is multiplied by the monster's multiplier. But it's generally around 1, right? Some stronger monsters, like I mentioned, can have 2 or even 3, and the lesser monsters can have 0.5 or something, right? So, for example, a rare normally weak monster would have 2.5 or something, right? So we have a 7% chance per power. So that's going to be like 20% when I freeze that target to spawn a cold remnant, right? And we also have a chance to spawn fire remnant when we ignite someone, which means we need a little bit of fire damage in our build, right? So guys, the cold is easy. Why? Because we are raining comets, all right? And comets are dealing heavy cold damage and they are going to freeze. So we will get our hands on cold remnants, no problem, right? But for the fire remnant, you need some fire damage, right? And so, for example, the plus 5% extra is not going to do it. So the tech I did for this one, take a look at this. Gain 59% of damage as extra fire damage, right? You need this stat, right? So you do not get 2 random elements, right? Lightning is most valuable for us because we do have some light. Maybe it doesn't really matter. Now that I think about it, because our build is lightning cold, right? So you should get yourself fire and something else, right? I mean, that's the ideal weapon setup, right? You want crit, you want all skills, you want cast speed, you want spell damage, and you want 2 extra elements. And one of those has to be fire. If you are lightning cold, this tech will not work, right? But of course, I am talking specific to my build, right? Anyway, and we finally have a lightning element that doesn't really apply to this, right? But I mean, if you have something that's going to get empowered by a lightning remnant, sure. But the thing is, if you are playing something that gets empowered by a lightning infusion, you can just, use Orb of Storms. That's very easy, right? You use the Orb of Storms, leaves behind. But of course, mapping is very high speed, so probably not going to work, right? Yeah, I did change my mind because you do not have the time to put a Orb of Storms on the ground and wait for it to expire, then grab the infusion and then empower. Yeah, you still will have to do this. But it would obviously work on bosses, right? You go to the boss during the boss spawning phase, you put the Orb of Storms on the ground, and when they spawn, the thing will despawn and you will grab lightning infusion and so on. So guys, how does it perform, right? Most important. So the thing is, you will be able to observe this. So let me remove this Razer logo for a second. So I do have Spark here and I do have Comet here. I keep Comet here on my bars even though I can't cast it because it's socketed in cast on critical, because I want to monitor the life cost, right? So what's going to happen is, guys, when I get the thing to work, these will have a fancy frame around them. This will have a, blue-whitish frame, which means it's going to get cold infused. And this is going to have a, yellow, orange, reddish frame around it, which means it's going to be fire infused, right? So you can see it better. Let me grab a map. Okay, it's 6 modifiers anyway. All right, this is me having farmed some temple energy. Oh, I was thorough, wasn't I? Okay, let's go. The build is okay. So now, guys, let's see. So we will also be able to observe when we get it. So as you can see. See the frame? So right now we have 3 lightning infusions because I am shocking everyone, but I can't use them, so they will just accrue there. But okay, I did get a cold one, and see the spark change projectiles, right? It does look a little bit more thick, right? And there are more projectiles. The skill level helps us collect the remnants from further. I mean, I guess regular maps die a little bit too quick, right? Ah, the spark was empowered, the comet was empowered. Did you see that? No, it was like a fiery meteor. Yeah, I mean, I think this content is a little bit too weak for us. Yeah. See? It's fire-infused. See? It's like a fiery meteor. Looks cool. Okay. So this does work. So thing is, and you might say that does barely work. It's not really very good. So the thing is, when you are doing somewhat harder content, you trigger them more often. Let's go to the boss. Why couldn't I find the boss? Where is the boss? Oh, there it is. And yeah, okay. Let's go. Hopefully the boss won't die too quick as well. So my Fire-Infused Comet is almost enough to one-shot map bosses, I think. Let's just take a look at his HP. We can tell. Yeah, it should be. $8 billion. Yeah, it's enough to one shot. So that's how approximately it performs, guys. We do our sparks, right? We shock enemies, we get lightning infusions, and we can't do anything with it. But as we crit, we build up energy for our cast on critical, which range comets, right? Which gives us cold infusions that triggers cold infused sparks. And thanks to the damage on my staff, I deal some fire damage and I ignite enemies. And when I ignite them, so they die a little bit too quick, I think, in regular maps. When we ignite them, we sometimes get fire infusion that will empower comets. So, for example, in the temple, I see the cold-infused spark and fire-infused comet much more frequently than here, right? Because they are pretty tough, right? They take a lot to die. I mean, it's not like a huge grind, but they do take a few hits, and then I can get the stuff going. But of course, this is not extremely reliable. I mean, you wouldn't be firing fire-infused comets all the time. If you want to do that, as I said, you can follow my advice and utilize cast on elemental ailment alongside with living bomb in it, and then you would be able to do it more often. But yeah, I find the sacrifice a little bit too much, because the thing is, guys, what I'm showing you is only a 30 spirit cost, right? This is beautiful, right? Cast on elemental ailment is 100. I mean, it does take things to a different level, right? Because the absolute theoretical maximum spirit that you can get without getting into any spirit gems is 30 from the helmet's corruption, which is perfect and is extremely expensive. I mean, it is expensive even on weaker helmets, right? Because you have to corrupt, you have to hit spirit, and then you have to hit the perfect 30. Then you can get 50 from the amulet, and you can get 15 from the amulet's implicit that does add up to like 95. You can use the tech I have showed you before and put Diala in the cast on critical, which will reduce the reservation a little bit more. You will, in the end, reserve like 78. So you will need 178, which is possible, right? 50 plus 15 plus 30 is 95, and you have to hit 78 there, which is not really very easy, but yeah. So what you could do is you could get 50 from the amulet, right? Or near 50, right? Near perfect. And you could get 28 from the helmet, and then you could not use solar amulet, the one with the spirit implicit. Could do, but yeah, it's gonna be expensive. I mean, if you are using blood of the sanguimancer or something like that, a cheap thing, then you can, you can do this method with a good vertex. It's just not possible, right? I mean, it's extremely expensive, right? Obviously possible, but not very expensive. So if you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask. I have been showcasing my temple, and you can see, you can go to those videos and see for yourself how often the lightning infused, cold and fire infused thingies go. And my build video is on the horizon. My build is finally complete. I'm just doing the videos I had in mind, and the build video is among the list. And I will see you in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.